In the ashes of the Great War, humanity endured. In the years, decades, and centuries that followed, civilization would be rebuilt. New tribes, new towns, and new ideals mingled with the old. And while some worked to rebuild the world they had lost, others, well, others cared only for themselves. For their survival, there was no cost that was too high, no one they would not betray. Across the ruins of America, innumerable raider tribes preyed upon the denizens of the waste. From the glow in California across the irradiated plains, raider tribes are as common as rad roaches. And like rad roaches, they spread in the absence of a strong authority. So it was when the Minutemen collapsed in the waste that had once been Massachusetts, raider tribes became more abundant, banding together in greater and greater numbers, raiding settlements, harrying travelers, and any and all who got in their way. From beyond the Commonwealth they came, guided by the firm and ruthless hands of their leader, one they called Slag. He was drawn to a pre-war industrial forge within the Saugus Ironworks, and seeing within it the embodiment of his ideals. The glory of fire and flame to reforge oneself, honing them into a sharp edge. And yet, in his first months in the Commonwealth, he and his raider band struggled to find capable recruits. These early efforts shading his view on the people of the Commonwealth. Settlers, other raider gangs, all were deemed too weak. Instead of being honed into more capable beings, they shattered. Incapable of surviving the initiation trials, their bodies were cast into the furnace. Such was Slag's disappointment that he considered abandoning the ironworks and moving on to greener pastures. And perhaps he would have done just that, if not for a chance encounter with the mercenary group known as the Gunners. Seeing in them a great potential, he convinced several to attempt the trials, their success reigniting his hopes. Of course, the Gunners' leadership wasn't very happy having their soldiers poached by some upstart. They responded in force. Yet, they were either unprepared for Slag's resolve, or not wanting to sacrifice the troops necessary to put down the forged. They negotiated an agreement to keep out of each other's way. This victory saw stories spreading of the raiders who stood up to the Gunners and won. The forged were flocked with potential recruits. These new members soon learned that the sadism and brutality that the forged expressed to outsiders was but a fraction of what would be faced in their trials. Those that survived emerged scarred, their flesh branded, having earned the right to a new name, a name that encapsulated their strength and honored the forge. They were expected to live up to all commands, and failure at best would see the individual mutilated, but more often than not, failure would result in a painful death. From his position in the ironworks, Slag harnessed the power of the fire to keep his raiders well-equipped and armored, providing them with flamers, Molotov cocktails, super sledges, and even modified laser weapons. Compared to other raider groups, even the lowest initiate was provided with good quality armor. Still, The best equipment, of course, was kept for Slag himself, who utilized his own personally constructed suit of power armor. To ensure this production, and to keep the furnace burning bright, the Forge expanded their operations, ordering their initiates to collect any and all scrap metal they could find, and they subjugated a neighboring raider camp in a nearby marble quarry, demanding of them the same. And yet, for all their industrial capabilities, it would not be unfair to describe their organization as parasitic in nature, completely dependent on their subordinates to acquire the necessary materials, dependent on neighboring homesteads and settlers for their food and for their recruits. For a time, this parasitic existence served them well, but in the face of a changing wasteland, the Forged stand in a precarious position. The sudden drop-off in metal production, a rise in hostile factions with the arrival of the Brotherhood of Steel, an increasingly active institute, and reports of a new raider gang in Nuka World. At the same time, raider gangs across the Commonwealth were one by one being destroyed. This could well be the Forged's final trial, where they may well shatter, or perhaps this will be the anvil that hones them into a true force in the wasteland.